Okay, welcome to Project 5. I'm going to get you going on this and get a lot of it set up for you, but then you're going to have to do the final coding, which, you should be getting close to being ready to do that now. Okay, this is the Sunnyside Products. I think it's exercise. I can't remember what the exercise is. You can look at the course schedule, but it's essentially you're going to look and have deduced which customer status they are, whether they're wholesalers or retailers. All right, and we have a couple radio buttons inside of a group box here, and I called my group box. I didn't name it. Shame on me. Status. There we go. I put the text in customer status, but I forgot to rename it. All right. Of course, I have my form. It's called Form Main. You can go in there and change all that, and just accept the little pop-up that comes up there. Yeah, you want to change the references all throughout. Set the start position to center screen and type in your caption here. Okay. And I've got two radio buttons. Now, the difference between checkboxes and radio buttons, in case you don't know, is radio buttons are mutually exclusive. You can only have one checked out of however many there are. So if I come over here and set check retailer, it's going to uncheck that one and then check that one. So you can only have one selection. Radio boxes, you can have as many as you want. In this case, it's either going to be a wholesaler or a retailer, so it needs to be one or the other. And they tell you in the instructions to use radio boxes for that. And what I've done here is I've just got one. See, this one's called RDO wholesaler and RDO retailer. Now, also set wholesaler as the default. Okay, you have to tell it which one. So I believe it's checked as the property, and we'll be using that property to deduce which one the user has selected. All right. So I set check to true. You could just as easily set the retailer checked to true, but you don't want both of them true. You only want one. And you don't want both of them unchecked. When this thing starts up, it needs to already have one of them set as the default and let the user change it. Okay, we've got a couple of labels here. There's a label with a 3D border around it. That's where our price is going to go. These just define what's to the right of them. All right, there's my number of units. This is the only text box on the form. This is what they're going to put the number of units in. So if you look in the book, if it is a, let's see, if it's a wholesaler, then you look at the number of units, okay? If the number of units is between 0 and 100, then they get a price per unit of $19. Else, if the number of units is between 101 and 200, then they get a price of $17 per unit. Otherwise, it's greater than 200 and they get a price per unit of $13. So the more they buy, the cheaper the price. All right. Now they're introducing some things here as far as data validation goes, but and I'll take you into a couple of things about that. So let's see what we need as far as code goes. Now, you can obviously pause the video and build all this and make sure you rename everything. It's easy to miss, as you just saw with me. I missed something. You need a clear button, a calculate button, and exit button on your form. So if we go to view code, notice I've got my regions already set up, and I've already got the events handlers that I want on there. So everything is a standard event handler, I think, for all of them, except text changed. It may be the standard too. I can't remember now. But I got my regions and I've got my events handlers already set up, and we'll talk about that. Now, I'm not going to go into the close button. That's easy. The clear button, we'll go through that. But see how easy it is to get around this thing with these regions? I recommend you use those, and I've talked about those in another video. So you double click on your buttons to get your click events for all three of those after you rename them. And then check changed is the default for the radio buttons. All right, so you can just double click on that. That'll take you into the code view. However, since both of these are going to be doing the same thing, I went ahead and let RDO wholesaler handle the check change for both. And you do that with a commonly limited list here. It talks about, I mean, we've already been through this, handles, check change, comma, RDO retailer check change. So regardless of which one you click, the user clicks, it's going to fire this event handler. Okay, and that's what that does right there. Because by default, it's going to put that in there. So I just added the comma, RTO retailer dot check changed. And you can put as many in there as you want. If I had 15 radio buttons and they all needed to do the same thing when any one of them was checked, then I would just use the handle statement there to set up a comma delimited list. Now the one you're going to have to add is, I believe, is text num units. And to do that, if it's not the default, because I can't remember if it's key press, key down, key up, which one it is. I think it's text change, so you can probably just double click on it. You can also come over here, once you select it, click on the lightning bolt, that's your events. Select that and you just hit enter right there and it'll put that event handler in there for you and call it, you know, the name that it needs to call it and so forth. So go ahead and do all your events, pause the video, get all your regions set up, and then we'll come back to this. Okay, I'm assuming you've already done that. And now I'm going to go up here right under the class declaration. And we're going to do the same thing we did in one of the previous projects, where if they change anything in that number of units ordered text box, we're going to wipe out any previous calculations. And you're going to have to use a modular level flag for that. So let's go ahead and put this in dim. Let me tab this over one. Dim, and I called it BLN for Boolean clear flag. All this does is track and see if there's been anything, as Boolean. Anything calculated, and if there isn't, then you don't need to be clearing out the text because they will never be able to type anything in. It'll just clear out every character. And that's all this does. I'm going to set it initially to false. And let's put a comment over here. Application level flag. This may be a two-parter too, by the way. It's going to be kind of intensive. Or it may not. Just depends. All right, so there's that. So keep that in mind. Of course, you know how to do the exit button. And make sure when you're doing these, I notice y'all aren't doing this, you need to put those alt key combination tags in there, okay? Clear, you put it in, whoops, let me go back to this. Okay, it's ampersand before the character that you want the alt key combination. So I put it before the L. Here I put it before the A, and here I put it before the X. You need to get in the habit of doing that, okay? There's a lot of little things you got to remember to do. Okay, so let's go back and we'll, the button clear, it's just basically going to wipe out anything that's in here, right? Here and here. Okay, so that's all that is. So let's go ahead and code that. That's an easy one. Let's see what we have here. So label out price, that's what I'm calling that, dot text equals string dot empty, or double quotes. If you want to do it that way, you can. I prefer to do string dot empty because I can't tell if there's a space in there otherwise. Dot empty, and there we go. And then I want to clear out the text. So let's see what I got here. Set focus button clear. I don't think oh yeah, there it is. I may have to go in there and change that. Oh, there it is. Okay. Text num units. That's the name of the text box. Dot text equals string dot empty. It remembers what you selected last, so yeah, IntelliSense is your friend here. And then I want to go ahead and set the focus back to that text box because obviously they're going to have to type something in there anyway. So you're doing the user a favor by directing their attention back to where they would have to click anyway. So whenever you can do that and not get out of hand with trying to determine what they want, it's always a good thing to do. So text num units dot focus. Okay, and there's that. Now, once I've cleared everything, I need to set this back to its original state of false. Now, you'll see why in a minute, and you probably remember this from the other application. All right, so that's got that. You see what we're doing? So we're setting our modular level clear flag to false because it would have been true if this had been done. We're setting the focus back to the text box and we're wiping out the label and the text box. So this is getting wiped out, this is getting wiped out, and we're setting the focus back there, okay? Okay, so now I can collapse this and get it out of the way. We'll come back to calc in just a minute. Check changed. All right. Why do we need anything in check change? Well, if they change something and there's anything in there, then we need to call this button clear click event. All right, that's the same thing as them coming in here and typing something. They have changed the status of the form, so everything that we've cleared needs to get wiped out. All right. That's why I'm having the handle statement call both of these, because it doesn't matter which one they check. I still need to wipe everything out. Even if there's nothing there, it doesn't matter. We still can call it. It's not going to hurt anything. So what are we going to do? What's the clear button's name? It's btn clear. And how do we do that? Perform click. Remember that? There we go. And that will fire this event, which will clear everything out. No need to have a bunch of redundant code in there, right? All right, you can close that one. And the text unit changed. That's going to be just like it was before in the other program, the other project. If, what are we calling it? BLN, whoops, why is it not BLN clear flag? Why is it if BLN, what did I call it? Why is it not seeing that? Equal true, then we need to do something. Oh, I know what's doing that. I didn't hit enter. It has to put that end if in there. Okay. All right, if that's true, then we want to fire what? The same thing we did here. The button clear perform click. Same thing. They've changed something, so we're going to call that, we're going to fire that click event. Now, I could just as easily put that in a custom method or function and call it that way, but since I've already got it in this event handler, there's no sense of doing that. I can just call the button clear.perform click, which fires this event. It runs your code in there. I could copy and paste this everywhere, but there's no need in it. Okay. Close this. Close that, and that should be good. Now let's get to the meat of the matter. What's the first thing you want to do when you're getting ready to look at doing the calculation? In the calculate button, click event handler. You have to decide the customer status, because that predicts what you're going to charge them. So you got to know that first. All right. Is wholesaler, is RDO wholesaler dot click, or excuse me, checked equals true? If it is, then they've checked this. If it's not, then they've checked that. So let's go ahead and go back to this. And I did that with an if statement. Determine the customer status. This is your radio button for the wholesaler. It has a check property, which remember I said it in design time as true. It'll either be true or false. It's a Boolean. If it's checked, it'll be true. If it's not checked, it'll be false. Since there's only two of those, if this one is false, then the other one has to be true. So I didn't even put the condition in there. There's no need in having it. You could do it either way, but all right. So that's what's going on here. If I go inside here, that means what's the customer status? They've got this one checked. Otherwise, they've got this one checked. And that's a totally different calculation, all right? Look according to your textbook. Okay. Now that I know which one's which, if it is a wholesaler, then, and it is between 0 and 100 units that they've ordered, their price is $19, right? If it's between 101 and $200, it's $17. If it's both those are true, or excuse me, if both those are false, then it's got to be greater than $200. So then the unit price is $13. So what variables do we need in here? I'm going to put them in here instead of global. There's no need for that. Okay, so we need a dim statement. There are three things we got to get here. Let's see. Or two things we got to get and one thing we got to calculate. Double price per unit. I'm using double because it's a price, even though it could be an integer per unit. Price per unit as double equals what? 0.0. All right, then I've got dim, double. Notice the nomenclature here. You need to go look at that handout if you didn't do that. It's in the student resources as double equals 0.0. All right, those are my two, or one input and one calculation. I've got another calculation here. Int number of units. Num units. Now, you may want to go ahead and do this logical design before you ever get to this point. I recommend you do. You'll see what I'm doing then, but if you're curious, you can just follow along up to a point. There are my three variables. I have one integer and two doubles. So if the customer has checked RDO wholesaler, then what do we got to do before we calculate the price? Well, we have to know what the number of units they've typed in is, right? Okay, if integer. Now I'm going to use a try parse method on this because if it fails, this is going to return false, because try parse returns true or false. If it's true, it means it's okay. They didn't type in garbage, and it can be converted to a number because, you know, they can type anything in there. If it's false, that means it's invalid data, and it's going to come down here, and we need to handle that. So we're going to validate this data that they've typed in. So we're going to use try parse. This is one way of doing it. We're going to use try catch later on, so you'll see. All right. Now, what they want here, and notice that, notice what pops up in IntelliSense. You have two implementations of this. That's how you do that. I want to use this first implementation. All right, now what are we trying to look at? We're trying to look at the string of text that I typed into text num units dot text. All right, that's how you get it, what's typed in there. Now, you'll see here when I put the comma in, it says by reference. You should already know what that means, by reference and by value. By reference is a memory location that points to an integer. And guess what that is? So what's going to happen is, if it will convert it to a value, it will go ahead, try parse, and put it in this variable here for me. And then this whole thing will return either true or false. And that's how we're validating to see if it will be, if it can be converted. I need to do something else here. I need another else right here. Else if, excuse me. Nope, just else and then end if. Sometimes you have to sort of work your way through this stuff. There. All right, so this is the inner if here, and this is the outer if. So we come in here, we get the customer status using try parse. If it can take what's in this text box and convert it to a number, it will do so, stick it in here, and then, it has to be an integer, and then it will return to this if statement, true or false. If it can, then it'll return true, and it'll come on in here, all right? Okay, so now, what do we need? We need another series of ifs. Deduce the number of units. I'm not going to do this all the way for you, okay? Int num units. If it's between 0 and 100, what is it? If num units is less than or equal to 100, that means it's between 0 and 100. And you're going to set the double price unit, units per price, per unit, price per unit. Else if int num digits is what? Between 101 and 200. Well, now you ought to be able to figure that out with the if statements. So there's going to be an if here, right? Oops. There we go. An else if inside here, and an else, okay? And then you're going to calculate and display the price. And that is just double total price equals int num units times what? Units, not unites, times double price per unit, which we figured out in this if here, okay? depending on how many they ordered, we're going to set that double price unit to whatever it is. Okay. So this will be double price unit. All right. Per unit, excuse me. Then we're going to output into our label the actual price. Dot text. Now we need to convert this back to a string, right? So it's double price per unit, total price. Sorry, total price. Dot toString. Now this is one way of doing it. And what that's going to do is going to take this, convert it to a string, and I'm going to put currency 2 decimal places in there. That'll give me the $sign and 2 decimal places to the right of the decimal point. All right, I'm going to put some comments in here for these ifs to try to help you out. If, now this is just pseudocode, you're going to have to figure this part out. If the number of units is less than or equal to 100, excuse me, wow, still got a cold. If that's true, then what? And then else if number of units. Now, again, this is pseudocode. You'll have to figure this out. It's not hard. Number of units is less than or equal to 200. That means it's what? It's between 101 and 200. These are integers. They can't be, 100.15. It's integers, okay? So if this is true, we know it's 0 to 100. Well, if this is not true and this test true, then we know it's from 101 to 200. It's not 0 to 100 because this has already been tested false. All right, I know you've seen this before in your logic class. Well, if it's both of those are false, then what does that tell you? Tells you that it's got to be greater than 200. All right. So depending on that, and all you have to do is set these ifs up. Okay. You're going to set the price per unit based on the number of units they're ordering. Okay. So double price, per unit. And I'm doing this because it'll error out if I don't. Equals what? According to the book. All right. That's if it's between 0 and 100. If it's between 101 and 200, it's what? $17 per unit. And if it's not, now it's not tabbing over for me because it's seeing this as a comment, so it's probably going to stick it right back. Yeah, it is. All right. Otherwise, if this is not true and this is not true, it has to be greater than what? 200. And they get, what do they get for that? They get $13. Okay. All right. Now, what if this if is false? Well, that means they've given us invalid data. Now, this is a little something maybe new to you, so I'm introducing it here. We're going to use the message box. This happens a lot. .show method. Now, oops, hang on just a minute. Okay. Now, there are 21 implementations of this thing, and this is IntelliSense showing you all the different implementations. I want to use this one, I think, here. Is that it? 6 buttons, caption, text. This one. This is the one I want. 7 of 21. Because I want a message, and I'm going to say, what am I going to say to the user? Okay, invalid data entered. All right, and then I'm going to put in my formal parameter, comma, and it takes me to this one. So, no, I said I wanted to use 7. All right, caption. I'm just going to put error. That's what shows up in the caption bar. All right, buttons. I've got to have a buttons in order to get my icon. So I'm just going to use just OK, because that's what we show up on their default. But you can use different combinations of buttons. And the icon I want is error icon. Okay, and that'll show this. All right, now once it shows that and they click OK, then I want to go back and put the focus back into that text box. All right, units dot select all. All that'll do is put the focus back in there and select everything, so as soon as they hit another key, it's gonna wipe out what they had. All right, now that takes care of that, but what if it's a retailer? Well, we're gonna have a little bit different logic, but it's very similar, right? Let's see what we did here. I forgot something. I got to clear that flag once I get here, up here, because I want to be able to, for them to type in new data. So I'm going to set it back to false. No, true, excuse me. That means we have calculated something already. All right. And this sets the flag for the text changed event. Okay. All right, so now if, on the other hand, it's a retailer, then I need to do something a little bit different. But I'm going to go ahead and copy this again because it's very similar, and I'll put it right in here. Okay. If it's a valid number, then this is going to be a little bit different, but all this is going to be the same pretty much. All right, the difference is if it is a retailer, then we're going to check to see if int num units is less than or equal to 50. All right. Well, if it's not less than or equal to 50, it's got to be greater than 50. So we don't even need an else if. We just need this else right. Whoops, this else right here. Now you'll have to figure that one out too. But it's just an if statement. It's not difficult. I've given you the values and everything. So if it's less than 50, less than or equal to 50, they pay $25 per unit. See that? Else it's got to be greater than 50, so they pay $20 per unit. I believe that'll get you right there. That ought to get it. So the only thing you really have to do is this if. Here, the series of ifs, and this series of ifs. And that's it. I've done everything else. So, I mean, there's really no reason for you not to be able to do this. Everything else ought to work. Let's see. So I guess I will only need one video for this. See if it's going to give me an error. Maybe not. Oh, my virus thingy's back on. Hang on a minute. Let me turn that off. 1 hour. There we go. Yes. Better safe than sorry, I guess. All right, let's try it again. All right, so notice I've got focus. I'm gonna have to show you about the tab stops too on this. See what it's doing? It's clear. If I put data in there, it's going to wipe it out when I check. If I put data in here and I press this, it should wipe everything else out. But I don't have anything in here, so clear does the same thing. Calculate. If I don't have any text in there and I hit this, if you didn't have that try parse in there, it would throw an error because it's trying to take an empty string and convert it to a number. There's your message box. Notice it goes right back up there. Alrighty, enjoy. I'm not asking too much, just asking a little bit more from you. And I will see you at the next video.